Hello, everyone. Here we are. We're going to do Genesis 4, 5, perhaps 6 tonight. But what I want to address first of all, I want to address a mistake. Last night I was talking about agnosticism and I meant Gnosticism. Gnosticism they are the group that believes that a goddess named Sophia had an orgasm and here we are. Okay, personally, I find that very pagan, very earthbound, fleshy, once again tying into sex, making sex a part of the creation. It's like man is so obsessed with sex. And while I get it, after, being abstinent for so many years, I think I have sex firmly in its place and it's just not something to be obsessed over. I mean, I know it's great, but it's just, people have it out of whack. And especially the pagans, because they use it to worship God, okay? So that was the mistake that I made, was saying it was agnostics. Agnostics believe that there is a God, but he has nothing to do with mankind. Gnostics believe in God and they have deities, okay? And their deity is Sophia. All right, so the other thing I want to address is that I was talking about, if you remember, when Adam and Eve ate the apple, they had to leave the garden because the tree of life was there. And the tree of life it gives eternal life, okay? Not the tree itself, but it's the way of eternal life through Jesus Christ. It's just I don't know how to explain it. But if Adam had been allowed to stay in the garden with Eve and they had eaten of the tree of life, first of all, we have to understand what happened when they ate that apple. They fell out of relationship with God. Before that, they'd been having a close relationship, God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, speaking to them and being an ever-present source to them. Well, when they bit the apple and failed to show love through obedience, and obeyed Satan instead, and thereby handed the whole world to him because they became his slaves at that point. Not that God didn't have the power, but everything had to unfold the way it had to unfold. Now watch this. This is interesting. So they couldn't have stayed in the garden because they might have eaten from the tree of life, thereby sealing their fate that they would forever be estranged from God. There would be no way for God to bring them back. I mean, God can do anything, but we have a God of reality too, okay? He does work within the reality that he has set up, okay? And I think that, and this is pure conjecture, I think in order to save man, he would have had to wipe out the first batch, Adam and Eve, and start over and make new man. I don't know, but that's my conjecture. The beauty of making them leave the garden and putting the cherubim around the garden so they couldn't get back in, and putting a flaming sword that was turning this way and that so that they couldn't get back in. The beauty of it is that now death has entered the world. That's not the beauty. But because of their falling out of relationship with God, physical death has now come in, and all the curses over the land and everything. It's like, and I've said this before, if you ever saw the movie Legend with Mia Sara and Tom Cruise, it's very old now. It's like 35 years old. She touches the unicorn horn that's on an actual unicorn, and the whole world is plunged into darkness because of a mortal touching an immortal unicorn. And they do a really good job of showing how everything just goes dark. It starts snowing. The beauty of the earth is just corrupted. Well, this is what happened when Adam and Eve bit that apple. They brought death in, okay? But it's through physical death that we can be redeemed by Jesus Christ. If there was no death, there would be no redemption for man, because Jesus came and died to redeem us, to bring us back to God. Okay, so think about that, okay? It's like God used the very curse that came in order to redeem us and win us back out of the hands of the enemy. It's very profound, and I'm going to read you just a little bit of what it says here. This is in Creation Ministries International. I'm not super familiar, but this is what they say about it. When Adam sinned, mankind became estranged from God and physical death entered the world. In this way, through one man, physical death entered the world. And through and then it cites Romans. And through Adam, death now came to all men. If Adam had eaten from the tree of life after he sinned, he would have lived forever. And we probably would be living forever in old, corrupt bodies. And I can't find or remember what I heard about that, but I have a feeling it was my friend Pastor Wayne who said something about it and said that we'd be living in these decrepit bodies forever. They would age and age and age, but we wouldn't be able to die. We'd be living eternally like that. If Adam had eaten from the tree of life after he had sinned, he would have lived forever, but he would have lived in a state of eternal estrangement from God. And that's the worst nightmare. Heck with the physical body problem. The worst nightmare is there'd be no more fellowship with God. While death is tragic and an enemy to God's perfect creation, this same curse of death is also what allowed Christ to become incarnate, in other words, come in the form of a man, as a man, and to actually die on the cross as a ransom for his people. If Adam had eaten from the tree of life after he sinned, all mankind would have lived forever estranged from God, and Christ, our kinsman redeemer, capital letters, would not have been able to die on the cross in redemption. In other words, if God didn't subject sinful humanity with a curse of death, sinful man would not have any chance of being reconciled back to God. If God didn't prevent Adam from eating from the tree of life after he had sinned, a future redemption through the physical death of one of Adam's descendants, Jesus Christ, would not have been possible. So that's really heavy, and I wanted you to get that. Now, the second question, and this is stunning to me because I've read the Bible many times, and I guess I never really thought about what the millennium was. I was just told, hey, it's 1,000-year reign, everything will be perfected, Jesus will be with us, but I never really thought about who was going to be there. Now, listen to this. This is from Faith Baptist Theological Seminary, so Bible University, Bible College. And it says the inhabitants of the millennium and the timing of the rapture. Okay, so we've talked about the rapture, but listen to what it says. Premillennial theologians, whether pre-tribulational or post-tribulational, that means they either believe that the rapture is before the trib or after, or maybe premillennial theologians, whether agree on at least 2 points concerning the inhabitants of the millennium. First, they agree that people with natural, unglorified bodies will inhabit the earth throughout the millennium. Second, now think about this. Second, these theologians agree that large numbers of unbelievers will inhabit the earth at the conclusion of the millennium. Now, the Bible is really, that part I understand, that the people in the millennium will be having babies and then their babies will have to get saved, okay? It says Douglas Moo, M-O-O, a post-tribulational premillennialist admits that a premillennial scheme must provide an explanation for the presence of unglorified saints and unbelievers in the millennium. Okay, let's break this down, make it a little more valuable here to us. Okay, it goes on, talks about the rapture. All right, the Bible also teaches that unbelievers will not be allowed to enter the millennial kingdom, this 1,000-year reign, okay? Only believers will initially populate the kingdom. After Christ returns to the earth and destroys the armies at Armageddon, he will convene, and this is all scripture supported, I'm just not reading it to you. He will convene two judgments and destroy every unbeliever who survived his tribulation wrath and his victory at Armageddon. So there will be people that survive that are unbelievers, as well as there will be some believers that survive. At one judgment, Christ will gather together the house of Israel, and he'll cause the people to pass under his rod of judgment. This is all scripture supported. Believers will return from the lands of the diaspora, that means the scattering of the Jews across the world, will enter into the new covenant with Christ and will be sanctified in the promised land. Also, Christ will purge out from among the house of Israel the rebels and them that transgress. As a result, at least at the beginning of the kingdom, all the house of Israel shall serve Christ. This is at the beginning of the millennial reign. At the other judgment, Christ will judge all nations and will divide them as sheep from the goats. He'll set the believers on his right and they'll inherit the kingdom. He will sentence the unbelievers on his left to everlasting fire, blah, blah. Okay, so what I want you to realize here is that there's going to be human beings, not glorified saints who were taken in the rapture, human beings left over after the tribulation. And God has two judgments, one for the house of Israel and one for the rest of the nations, okay? And he's getting rid of the evildoers and keeping the ones that are elected by him. Therefore, every unbeliever who survives Christ's second coming will be eliminated from the earth and will not be granted access into the kingdom. This means that the first generation of millennial inhabitants will all be believers, whether they're Jew or Gentile. This also means that the unbelievers of the final millennial generation who participate, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, I guess that was it. That's what I want to tell you, is there will be glorified saints there. I read something else that says the human beings that are left on earth after they're divided and the believers inherit this millennial kingdom, also the people who went in the rapture will also be in the millennial kingdom, okay? But they will not be bearing children because they have glorified bodies. The people who don't have glorified bodies yet, they will be able to marry and have children and repopulate the earth. And at the end of 1,000 years, Satan is going to be let loose to deceive the earth one more time for a very short period, and that will clear out the rest of the unbelievers who have been born within the 1,000-year reign. Okay, that's the best I can explain it. Truly, some of this was really shocking to me. I was like, you're kidding. There's going to be people on earth that made it through tribulation. Well, yes, there'll be some saints, there'll be some unbelievers, and then a couple judgments will come down. Then everybody left will be believers. And then I believe I read something else that said the glorified saints will be there. So it'll just be a big, wonderful time of reigning with Christ. But that's also why, if you remember in Revelation 19, it said the kings will come to worship there, because there will be people that don't have glorified bodies. They've not died in the tribulation, okay? So there's still going to be people and kingdoms and all kinds of stuff that's all going to be glorified and set right. Everything's going to be beautiful, and everybody's going to be a believer. But these human beings can still create children, and it's those children that will, be raised in the Lord, but some of them will not serve the Lord. And that's where Satan comes out again to chew up those people, and God will remove them. At that point, the new Jerusalem and the new heaven comes down. So don't worry if you can't follow this. I find it difficult, and we have to recognize that this is still, there's a lot of biblical support here and scriptural support, but some people believe they agree on who's going to be there. Believers, okay? Physical ones and ones with glorified bodies, and the unbelievers will be judged. But I know that there's different semantics that are believed in this, and I'm not going to get into that. That's too heavy for me. And I'm just surprised that I never knew that there were going to be human beings there that had not been raptured, that lived through the tribulation. After they're sorted out, everybody on earth will be a believer, and then the saints will join in. So this is why it sounds like earth is still going on in Revelation 19, where it says kings will come up to the temple and worship the Lord, and kings from the nations. And I'm like, what? Okay, so I have a little better grasp of it now. All right, so let's go to Genesis 4. We've just seen the fall and the curses that have come to Adam and Eve because of the fall. So here we go. Now they've been thrown out of the garden, and they're on a cursed earth that they have to struggle to get food out of. And here we go. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I've brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now, Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he didn't look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what's right, will you not be accepted? But if you don't do what's right, sin's crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. There's that jealousy again. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where's your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you're under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it'll no longer yield its crops for you. You'll be a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you're driving me from the land, and I'll be hidden from your presence. I'll be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. Now we have no idea what that mark is. There's been lots of conjecture. I don't believe anything I've heard. One crazy one is that, oh, it's the black people. That's their mark. No, it's not. I don't believe that. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, N-O-D, east of Eden. Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methushael, and Methushael was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. Okay, so there's Jabal. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who lived in tents. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who play stringed instruments and pipes. So if you're a musician, Jubal is where you came from. Jubal is J-U-B-A-L. Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain's sister was named Naamah, N-A-A-M-A-H. Lamech said to his wives, "Ada and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Wow, that's proud. Adam made love to his wife again, and so do you understand what happened there? Cain, this is these are the descendants of Cain, and Lamech is Cain's, he's his ancestor. He's like his, Cain is Lamech's like great grandfather, okay? And so now Lamech is saying, well, if my great-great-grandfather is avenged 7 times, if anybody kills him, then I'm 7 times, 70 times, 77 times. Then Lamech 77 times. So that's a little pushy, a little proud there. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh, E-N-O-S-H, Genesis 5. This is the written account of Adam's family line. When God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them, and he named them mankind, in parentheses or quotes and with a capital M, when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived a total of 930 years, and then he died. And I have no reason, and there is no reason to think that it isn't 930 years, as we understand 930 years. When Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. After he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived a total of 912 years, and then he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he became the father of Kenan. After he became the father of Kenan, he lived 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, he lived a total of 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. After he became the father of Mahalalel, Kenan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, he lived 910 years, and then he died. When Mahalalel had lived 65 years, he became the father of Jared. After he became the father of Jared, he lived 830 years and had other sons and daughters. He lived a total of 895 years and died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. Okay, now this is the Enoch that we have a book from, okay? And I know I've told you that I would perhaps read it to you. We'll see. After he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years, had other sons and daughters, and died after he lived a total of 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, he walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more because God took him away. Translated him. He never died. He just walked right into heaven, translated into a glorified body. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. After he became the father of Lamech, now this is a different, let's see, the son of the great-great-great-great-grandson of Cain, I believe, was also Lamech, but this is now the son from Adam, from Adam's line. He was the father of Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years, had other sons and daughters, and he lived a total of 969 years, and then he died. He's the one that we say, oh my gosh, he's as old as Methuselah, you know. When Lamech had lived 182 years, now here's the important part, he had a son. He named him Noah. and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." After Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And these are the three that repopulate the earth after the flood. Okay, so here we go. Genesis 6. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they're mortal. Their days will be 120 years. So he shortened it, so we get 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. So let me explain this, and you probably already know, but the sons of God is a reference to angels, and these were fallen angels that mated with the beautiful daughters of men, and they created the giants, and the giants are the warriors of old. Now it says here they were on the earth in those days, dash, and also afterward, dash. So there's no reason to think that people descended from Nephilim are not with us today, okay? The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth. That makes me so sad. He regretted us. And his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, "I'll wipe from the face of the earth the human race I've created, and with them the animals, the birds, the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I've made them." That makes me so sad. Can you imagine? You make this beautiful creation and they're all just horrible all the time. They're just naughty people. And naughty obviously is not a good enough word, but I'm just trying to tell you they were just evil. They just turned evil. So he's like, "I'm going to wipe them away, and I'll take away all the birds and everything else," because man was supposed to take care of the birds and the earth and the animals. That's just very sad. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Thank goodness. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, "I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out." That would be tar. "This is how you're to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high." Remember, a cubit is 18 inches. "Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish, but I'll establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark. You and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you." So 8 people. "You're to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You're to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Now, it's hard to understand how anybody could have lived through the flood, but it does say that the Nephilim were there in those days and after. So there's things that God didn't choose to tell us, or it's hidden in the Bible and I haven't found it yet, okay? Sometimes God doesn't tell us because we don't need to know. Things, I guess, are on a need-to-know basis. Sometimes he doesn't tell us if it's going to take us away or confuse our faith in him. Okay, so God told us exactly what he wants us to know. All right, so we're going to keep it simple, and I hope I didn't confuse you with the discussion on the millennium. It just overwhelms me. You know why? Because I never, ever, ever realized that there would be human beings in the millennium. I thought it was like all of the people that had been raptured and had been believers before. I thought it was all of us in glorified bodies enjoying the earth made perfect. But no, it's going to be a conglomeration of believers, people with mortal bodies and people with glorified bodies. The evil will have been sorted out and they will have been done away with. So it will start as a very beautiful situation, but at the end of 1,000 years, there's going to be a lot of corrupt people in it again. And Satan will be out there doing his deal, but it won't last nearly as long as this time. Okay, it's going to be pretty quick, pretty brief. And then the New Jerusalem comes down. Okay, and that's, you know, the city with the golden streets and everything else. So I love you very much. I will see you tomorrow. We'll pick it up with Genesis 7 and we'll hear about this adventure that Noah is about to go on. And believe me, he was ridiculed for building this ark. Just like the world today, they make fun of us, they exclude us, and they hurt us. But it's like I heard once, you know, you get on a plane and you're wearing a parachute and no one else is, and everyone's laughing at you like, you crazy idiot. Why are you wearing a parachute? Well, because you know the end of the story. You know the plane's going down. And when you try to tell them that, they laugh you to scorn. Very similar to where we're at today, folks. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.